And we are broadcasting. Hi, everybody. Cyberspace Cadets. It's your one and only Irate Prostate here. We're doing another cream stream. It's the seventh cream stream out of this series, and it's Friday the 13th. We're trying to have a lucky unlucky because it's 7 and 13. They cancel each other out and make 6, which if you had 3 of them, you'd be the Antichrist. I want to introduce everybody tonight. We have, of course, a series regular, Occam.
Yep. Hey, everybody.
And Sir Adamantine, who's graced our airways before.
Hi, everyone. And
special guest tonight is the one and only Isaac. I don't know if you want to use your whole name, but go ahead and introduce yourself, bud.
I'm Isaac Yepes. I'm with the College Republicans at UTEP. And kind of an asshole. I'm not gonna, a little bit there.
So he's in college. He's a Republican. He admits it. You know what? This man has got the biggest set of balls I actually know right now.
Thank you. My girlfriend usually complains about that.
So you've had like conversations. This is really like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing. You've had conversations with, among other people, Jordan Peterson, and you had mentioned that earlier. You want to give us a little insight into what kind of person he's like and what y'all talked about?
Oh, that guy. He basically inspired me to do what I'm doing politically. Like when I first reached out to speak to him, I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I guess it'll be fun or whatever. I'll learn something. And after the hour and 20 minutes that he gave us the first time, I was like dead set on, okay, I need to be politically active. The guy's an encyclopedia as far as I'm concerned. And I remember, I'll never forget what he said to me was, right now, you're in the fight of your lives. You just don't know it yet, but it's here.
Yeah.
And this was after he was talking about the gender bill that was just being introduced at that time. This was in November of, I want to say last year.
This is C-16, right? The Canadian C-16, right?
And when we all kind of laughed when he said, it's a criminal offense to misgender somebody, and we all, and he goes, no, this is very serious. It's already in New York, and it's on its way toward you.
Yeah. And
that kind of shut us all up, and
well, it just happened here, man, didn't it? This week.
But after that conversation, we spoke a few more times about the current state of academia and stuff like that. And I was just convinced that I had to do something afterwards.
As a matter of fact, he posted an article on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this, but I saw it and I said, shit, I really wanted to talk about this tonight. And it has to do with college. And when I saw that you were into SDA stream, I figured, man, I'd really love to get you in on this thing because I knew you had talked to him. But this is I'm going to read a little bit and then we'll talk about it. Is everybody cool with that?
Good to go.
I've got it on a laptop and I'm broadcasting through my through my PC, so I can't put the link into it, but I'll find it after I read it and put it in there so we can all look at it. But this is from Philadelphia, okay? New report from the Foundation of Individual Rights on Education finds majority of students on college campuses self-censor in class. They support disinviting some guest speakers with whom they disagree, and they don't know that hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. The study also finds that Republican and Democratic students have different opinions on campus protests, disinvitations, and hate speech protections. And in the most comprehensive survey on students' attitudes about free speech to date, FIRE, which is the fire.org is where this article is from, measured the student responses to questions about self-expression, reactions to expression of other students, guest speakers, and hate speech. Some key findings include 46% of students recognize that hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. 48% of students think the First Amendment should not protect hate speech. All right, most students, 56%, support disinviting some guest speakers. Democratic students are 19 percentage points more likely than their Republican peers, it's a big surprise, to agree that there are at times speakers that should be disinvited. 58% of college students think it's important to be part of campus community where they are not exposed to any intolerant or offensive ideas. Let that sink in. Very few students report that they would participate in actions that would prevent a guest speaker event from taking place. That was 2%. And even fewer said that they would use violence to disrupt the event, 1%. In open-ended questions, almost half the students, which is 45%, identify speech with a racist component as hate speech. And 13% of students associate hate speech with violence. So if I said, my friend, I've got a black friend, they 45% of people said that was racist. That would be a racist thing. And then the last thing, these are bullet points I'm pulling out. And then the last one I pull up is in class, 30% of students have self-censored because they thought that their words would be offensive to others. The majority of students, 54%, report self-censoring in the classroom at some point since the beginning of college. And so we can use this as a little springboard to kind of talk about, the serious stuff. And then as the night, gets a little longer, we'll just kind of unravel from there. So, so the floor's open. If anybody wants to, some heavy shit there, man. And I'll pull this up and put it in the chat while y'all are talking.
Well, it's the self-censorship is one thing, but the willingness, or I guess the percentage of those willing to silence others because they don't agree with their point of view is a little bit damning of academia, I think. And one of the reasons that I see this quite a bit, and this is a belief that I have, is those in academia are largely secular. And right. I don't think it's a mistake, or I don't think it's an accident that professors teach their students that they're impervious to irrationality because they're secular. Whenever they mention the religious, back 200 years ago, they always go, oh, well, they killed them because they didn't believe in their God, ha ha ha. And it's like, okay, well, those hostile and emotional responses, you can find those same things in anybody that questions liberal dogma. And this is a result of that. And what baffles me is that they don't realize that this hound is going to come back and snap at their hands, and it's eventually going to eat them alive. You can already see it at Berkeley. That one professor who basically caved to his whole class when they were demanding that they shouldn't have to take the test because they're oppressed or people are dying or some stupid ass rationale. And rather than telling them to get the fuck out of the classroom and that they all fail his class if they walk out, he said, well, I mean, that's your choice, which is like, it's a passive way, but it's just the cowardice of academia is always like that. They'll never challenge them. They'll never really tell them or put their foot down. This is why I believe that the correction of social justice will never come from academia, because academics are largely cowards. And this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Absolutely. Okay.
Well, it doesn't take much
Akram?
courage to say stuff as opposed to the courage it takes to actually do stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody, this is Silverblade. He's one of the regulars here. Just introduce yourself a little bit, bro.
Hello, I'm Silverblade. Like he said, on with the show.
Cool. Yeah, I put the for everybody that's in the side chat on the YouTube page, I have I put the link to the survey there. This is a neat little site. I didn't know it existed, and I'm kind of glad that he put that up. Akam or Sir Adamantine?
Well, I agree with everything he just said. The only good thing that I would say is once these kids actually have to get out into the real world and get a job, their opinions tend to change.
Yeah, but don't you see? Can you see like all these youngins running to HR departments and and bitching and filing lawsuits and shit?
And I can see the HR departments getting rid of them very quickly.
You think so?
I know my employer would.
Yeah.
And my employer isn't particularly conservative either.
Right, and it's all about the bottom line, of course. See, it's on college campuses. I call it the bubble of academia because it's such a safe place, for lack of a better phrase, to express these ridiculously unrealistic, beliefs and ideas, and to explore them, intellectually. But getting to the point of where people believe they can actually apply them, in real life. I saw something else about people were asked like questions about the way that the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, some of the wording in it, they used specific sentences out of it, and they said that they said there was no way that was in our Constitution. It makes you wonder, what. People are blowing a shitload of money to be misinformed.
Well, basically what it comes down to it is, like you're saying, it's a bubble of safe space, but it's also a bubble of self-importance. Because, if you want to shut someone down, someone like me who only has a high school diploma, all you have to say is, well, I have a degree.
That's the appeal to authority that a lot of these students will commit to when they're arguing. We'll say, well, where's your degree?
Right.
Or something like that. And it's to me, that always reads as kind of weaselly. I ask, if your argument was so strong, why do you have to run to that?
Right.
Yeah, if your argument can stand on its own merits, you wouldn't have to run away from the argument itself. And
well, the same thing as when they call people racist, homophobes, bigots, sexists, et cetera, it's just to not really argue, but to insult and attack you because they can't stand on their own 2 feet with an argument.
Yeah, and it's really sad because even the professors that I have, I mean, maybe we get to the 3rd level of argument, but not much past that. And it's, they have 8 years under their belt of academia. I'm still an undergrad, and that's why whenever I talk to underclassmen, like the freshmen and the sophomores, I always say, like, don't be afraid to argue. A lot of these people can't argue past that 2nd or 3rd point. If you really know your stuff, you shouldn't be afraid, because that one really smart student that you have in the class who's like ultra liberal and is just gonna moralize everything, past that 2nd argument, they don't have much. And I mean, this is from experience. I've been there, I've done that. I've argued pretty much with every professor I've ever had, and it just doesn't get much better than that third position.
See, the way I see it, a lot of these colleges that support the suppression of free speech because they find it hateful, or they don't like to hear what you have to say, because they disagree with it. I think that's really unacademic. To even call that like academia at all is, I think, an insult to academics, because like, how are you supposed to have an exchange of ideas or knowledge at all if like you're just going to accept one thing as absolute fact, and anything that goes against that as hate speech or some sort of thing that you shouldn't tolerate, and then just silence?
Well, that's because they're intellectually dishonest.
Like, it's unscientific. It's the complete opposite of academic.
Right. Well, I mean, I say it's intellectually dishonest because they are in the mindset that we are right, everyone else is wrong. We have these degrees to prove it, or this much research, or people that we've looked at that confirmed our bias have proven us right. So there you go. You're all wrong. You're bigots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Yeah, and it bothers me that when we look at these sort of things where's the exchange of ideas, they don't care. It's axiomatic, and that's a huge issue in academia right now. Well, these are self-evident truths, therefore anybody who is against it I deem hateful, because how can you deny this? And if you base your arguments on axioms, you need to understand this is like an old Roman proverb. I forgot which emperor it was, but he says axioms are not self-evident truths, they're merely assumptions. And academics need to understand this, because the things that they hold dearly, they've given up knowledge on it, they've become faithful in it. And they'll always talk about God and how, you know, he doesn't exist and faith is just with the absence of knowledge or something like that. But they fail to realize that secular beliefs can be the same thing. And I speak about this as an atheist, which always kind of blows their minds. They're like, oh, well, aren't you a Bible thumper? I'm like, what the fuck? I've been an atheist since I was like 10. And yeah, that fucks them up. Like they're like, well, fuck, shit. Like they don't know where to go from there. And it upsets me that I see this even with professors. How can you teach young, malleable minds when you yourself are ignorant and bigoted yourself? You're teaching like that TED Talk, the narrative, the danger of the single narrative. They fail to realize that they're doing the exact same thing every day, every semester, every year. And it's affecting a lot of minds.
Well, and see, and I was there in the 80s when everybody was reacting because the moral high ground was held by the religious right. You know, I remember, you know, I prided myself because I was one of the first people that did I had a class in ethics, and I did a paper on factory farming. And nobody had ever heard of that. The professor was like, I got all this like attention that I really didn't need to get because of it. But and that was the beginning of this whole mindset, you know. And it's like this generation that started in the 80s, you know, this whole, and at that point I believe that you know, there was some nobility to the whole quote cause or fight or whatever you want to call it. But as years, you know, got by, you know, it's like we're into the third or fourth generation of this, man, and everybody's just lazy in their argument. You know, because all these arguments have been made so many times. There's a set, you know, there's a set path and pattern that everybody takes when they have, you know, when they engage in these arguments, right? And the left has relied on this so much that they realize they don't have anything to fall back on, and all they do is they just talk over you, you know, and try to, you know, filibuster you or you know, or out shout you. And that's the only way they think they can get their point across, because their point is weak. And I think, really all I'm saying is exactly what you just said, Isaac. I just, I'm trying to say it in a way where, like, somebody that's been semi-lobotomized by chemicals, can understand it. It's like you say, axiomatic and stuff. And I'm like, man, what does that mean?
One of the nice things, though, is that the college system that creates all of this is financially unsustainable.
Yeah.
It can't continue like it does. One of the main reasons that it is so expensive is because anyone can get student loans. And when it all starts collapsing, I think a very good proposal is student loans only for hard science degrees.
I would not disagree with that.
I mean, the whole idea behind the government giving student loans is that it's eventually helpful to our economy.
Yeah.
Getting a worthless degree does nothing to help this economy. So there's a perfectly legitimate argument to be made for it.
Well, what product can be made from gender studies?
Exactly. Well, a double latte, but that's about it.
Oh, I wouldn't even trust that far.
If you want to look at the product that gender studies degrees produce, I can show you, but I'm not sure if you have the money for chemotherapy afterward.
I'm still trying to get over that.
I think we've all
from other discussions we've had.
We've all seen Christy Winters, so.
Oh no, we haven't. I try not to.
Probably admit it.
Cornea cancer is not a joke, guys.
I'm sorry.
Do you know what I wish? You guys have heard of Christopher Hitchens, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I kind of wish I wish he was still alive, because if he was still around, he would have so much fun just like picking apart all these radical SJWs arguments at colleges and stuff like that.
Well, him and Andrew Breitbart as well.
But yeah, like if he was still around, that would be awesome. I would love to watch him just like go debate a bunch of college students and just.
Oh, I don't think they would allow him on campuses anymore.
Isn't life demanding that we become our own Christopher Hitchens? He's not here, and somebody's got to take that.
That mantle.
Yeah, that his combative. The way that he would deal with people was just it was rude as fuck, man, but he got his point across, and and he was practically unbeatable in any kind of argument. There's something to be said for that. The art of debate. He was brilliant at it. So was Breitbart, man. Breitbart's another one. Jesus. We really lost it.
No, I totally agree.
It was a double hammer blow to losing both of them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Hitchens is really replaceable by anyone. That was a once in a generation.
No doubt, man.
Yeah, the way that guy would bully people into corners was just amazing.
Who does he compare to in Greek? Somebody was using and they were saying he was was a perfect analog, and Mitch would probably know this answer. Is he still in the audience? I see our friend the communist is out there. I don't think Mitch is there anymore.
I'm having a DM conversation with him anyway, so I'll tell him to come back.
Okay, if you want to, would y'all mind if he popped in?
Oh no, I'd love to talk to him.
He's a historian, and he could really add a lot of color to this.
One of the things I was thinking of is, each generation seems to have at least one person that really stands out in terms of philosophy or politics or even an intertwining of the two. But it seems like, the current 2, even 3 generations really haven't had anything that, anything really big to show that isn't like all one side or all the other. Someone kind of towards the center that can appeal to both sides. You know what I mean? Because we could easily say Milo, Ben Shapiro, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and maybe so and so and so and so from the other side. But there's not really one that's towards the center that really, really stands out.
I wish I could be the next Hitchens. That would be fun. Just going around.
Go for it, man. Shit, there's nobody going to stop you, man. I back you because we need that. Society as a whole needs that.
Yeah, I'd probably need about 20 years of reading before I could get to that point. I
got a feeling, man, that you're pretty fast on your feet when it comes to do you do that pretty much when it comes to were you part of the debate scene?
So actually, my first and only debate was like the first week that I joined the College Republicans last year in like October. We were going up against the University Democrats, and I'm not sure if there's much footage of it anymore. I know there's like 2-minute clips, but I was an asshole in that debate. And we originally had scheduled a series of debates. And after that debate, the University Democrats completely canceled all the rest. And I brought I want to say like 20 pages of research, so I knew that I had my facts correct. It was about like gun control, and then about Hillary Clinton, and I want to say it was healthcare. Those were my 3 topics. And I had bullied one of the guys into agreeing with me about gun control. And then I said, "Welcome to the Republican Party." And then the crowd erupted in like laughter and cheering. And this chick, like off to the left, because this was outdoors, she was just giving me like the nastiest look, like, "You fucking douchebag." And like I smirked, and that set the other guy off. And then he tried to come in. And then I said, "Your position is indefensible. Let's move on to the next topic, because nothing that you're going to say is worthwhile." And
wow.
then we moved
top
on to
keck, dude. Top keck.
You forced him to deplatform himself.
Yeah, right? And we go into healthcare, and one of them says, "Well, healthcare should be for everyone." And I said, "Yeah, that feels good to say, but are you willing to pay for it?" And he goes, "Well, I mean, it's all going to come out in taxes." I was like, "Well, how much do you know how much it's going to come out to?" And he goes, "Well, I mean, you can join onto your parents' healthcare." And I said, "Well, what about those of us who don't live with mommy and daddy?" And he was like, and I was like, "Do you know what the penalty is for not like subscribing to healthcare, Obamacare?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Well, that's more than I'm able to pay for 2 months worth of groceries." I was like, "So do you want me to starve, or what do you want?" And he goes, "Well, if you're under the age of 26, and I was like, "If you're under the age of 26 and you live with your parents." And then, and I don't even think I was correct on this part of the "and you live with your parents," but he like didn't know what to say, and he started like fumbling. And I said, "Well, answer the question. Like, do you even know what you're talking about?" And then he goes, "Well," I said, "Well isn't an answer. Do you not know what you're talking about?" And then like he says, I'm gonna have to defer." And I said, "I thought so." And like at that point, it was more laughter, and I was like, "What the hell?" Like I thought all these kids were gonna be Democrat that showed up to this debate. And
have you ever been so embarrassed for somebody? My nuts are like going into my body right now listening to this. I'm just like, dude, man.
Did they call for the coroners to arrive afterwards? Because it sounded like a massacre.
Oh, the moderator actually, because he knew the next topic that I had was Hillary Clinton, He cut the debate an hour short.
Ah.
And I said, wait, no, we're actually 45 minutes early, so why don't we continue this? You got to talk about Trump. Let me talk about Clinton. And a lot of people were like, let him speak. And the guy comes out, he's like, okay, we'll give like 8 minutes to the college Republicans, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I thought so, dude. And I have that guy for class now, and I'm like, yo, what's up? Like, you tried to cut me off.
Remember me?
Yeah. And one of the guys was pulling a Cenk Uygur on me. He like kept trying to talk over me. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Like, is it my turn to speak or yours? Like, act like an adult. And then the fucking crowd goes, oh, like that. And I have this dickhead smirk. Like, I know I have a dickhead smirk. And like, I know, because he looked over at me, because we're all on one table. And he looked over at me, and I was like, I know he wants to punch me in the face right now. Like,
Did he smell like a wet? Did he smell like a wet water buffalo?
he smelled like cheese and like sour milk.
Oh, so Cenk's and Anna's love child.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good time. I actually really loved the debate, but we never got to do it again.
Back when I was in high school, I was in the academic decathlon. Mind you, this is like 25 years ago. And the topic of choice was school of choice. And the thing is I went to a private school for elementary school, 7 years of a private school, and then high school for public school. So I had the best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. And the girl that I was debating, she was on the Quiz Bowl team with me, but she was all for, public schools only, you can't pick whatever. And that's when I started tossing in, mind you, this is the mid 90s, start tossing in, well, you could choose to have an abortion or not, right? You're pro-life, pro-choice for that, aren't you? And she's like, yeah. And I says, well, why can't I have a choice of what school to go to? Or my parents have a choice to send me to a specific school.
Yeah, my child, my choice. Holy shit.
And then she just kind of sputtered on it, and I can't remember exactly what she said, mind you, 25 years ago. And I says, well, imagine you're in a school that is so shitty that there's roaches everywhere. The door frames are rotting away, like Detroit schools are now. You could see through holes in the floor to the floor below. And the teachers are more there to babysit you than to teach you. And your parents want you to have a future, but they can't give you that future because you're trapped in the school you're in. And I just got this death glare by the teachers. There's an assistant principal there. And they're like, I just felt like I was at a firing squad and nobody said a thing. It scared the hell out of me. I'm just like, I think I'm done for the day. And there, a couple guys laughed and they said, okay, you're done. And then that was it for that. But yeah, if you could drop a pin, it would have shattered your eardrums in that room.
Yeah.
Just because of nobody could debate it. And yet everyone was for the opposite side.
I love that. I took some cues from Naked Ape. Because we used to be in pretty close contact, and he was like, no, you have to make it entertaining and be an asshole while you do it, so you piss him off. And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, dude, like that. And so lately I've been doing that in my classes, and surprisingly, I haven't met much resistance. Because in English classes, like 80% of it is open debate. What do you think about this? What's your interpretation? Why is it defensible? And I'm used to, like, within the first week, 90% of the class hates me. The other 10% is like, yeah, he makes sense. And the professor's like, this fucking asshole again. And when I talk in class now, it's like, maybe there's one or two people that'll go like, I kind of agree, instead of like, no, fuck that, you're like, this is completely wrong. And I think the biggest weapon that people forget they have, liberals and conservatives alike, against leftists, is rudeness. If you're rude and unapologetic, they really can't attack you with much.
Well,
The best. Oh, what's up?
I was going to say that's like taken right out of their playbook, though, isn't it? I mean, in my experience, that's what I've seen for the last 15 years is like, all the left, man, all they're doing is screaming over, the person that's presenting for the right, while they're talking.
Mm-hmm.
And that rudeness. Yeah. Okay. Keep going. I'm with you.
So yeah, when you're a dick to people, especially these people, a lot of time they'll cower. Maybe they'll scream at first, but it's a lot like a chihuahua or something. It's going to yap for a minute, but it'll shut the fuck up once you tell it, its place. And with these people, when they try to moralize things, they go, well, you should feel ashamed. Well, I don't. Well, fuck. Like, I don't know what to say now. And
that's because you circumvented their shaming.
Yeah. You have to force them to present you a viable argument. And if you cower down to insults and to moralizing, you're never going to win. If you start by saying, I'm not racist, I'm not a bigot, I'm not sexist, you lost.
Yeah.
You need to begin with, I don't give a fuck what you think about me. Yeah, I mean, that's my personal take on it.
Well, yeah, because it fits perfectly into their herd mentality. Because what you're doing is you're separating them by the fact, okay, you're asserting that alpha dominance, okay. So in the herd, perceptually in your mind, okay, you're the big dick of the herd already, right? And so they either have to fight you or fall into place. And 99% of the time they're going to fall into place because of that. I like that. See, I play chess the same way. I come at the person I use their strategy against them, and that's the best way I think to present that type of argument. Yeah, man. It makes perfect sense to me.
Does this make sense to everybody else? I've noticed everybody's really quiet.
No, I fully agree, and that's kind of how I, not in the sense of a debate, but that's kind of how I approach life.
Yeah, I think Occam's trying to figure out a way to make a religion of you right now, man. I think he's found a new hero over here. Is there, Occam?
Yeah, I'm here.
Dude, I'm fucking with you, man. God. I like
so my approach to debates and argument is I try to stay as calm and level-headed as I can, no matter how much the other person might try to scream or throw a fit or about whatever it is. Because if you in my opinion, if you stay calm, reasonable, level-headed, and like, I don't know, like your approach is like you do a level-headed argument, but like I try to not be like what you said, just like be
a dick
about it, I guess. Like like I can be, but I try not to be as much, so that way like when people look back at that argument, all they see is me presenting all these facts and or different reasoned out thoughts, and if this other person is like turning it into like this illogical screech fest, if you will, like if they're some liberal that just wants to silence me, then they're going to look insane while I'm going to look like this level-headed person that was just reasoning things out. And like, I don't know. It's just,
well, it's like the instant you elicit a emotional response that makes you look unnerved, they smell blood in the water and they'll go right after you.
Yeah. Like I like being a savage and stuff, but I try to do it. I would like to anyway. Like I strive to do arguments and debates, I guess, in as much of a statesman way as possible. Like, you know, just
Yeah, so appeal
you
to
know,
the greatest majority.
Yeah.
Well, on the same end, though, there is a point where you have to use a little theatricality, maybe a little over the topness, because that's the thing that people remember the most. It's like when you look back at memories, the things that stand out the most are either your happiest memories or your worst, most tragic ones.
Mhm.
And if you get that kind of range in a debate, then chances are people remember it. It'll stick with them, and whatever you say will linger on longer than what the other side says. That's kind of why the left is so good at poisoning people's minds, because they continually beat it into you, and then they use the jokes. I mean, like back in the 90s and 2000s, you know, when they make a joke against the Republican, or how they keep saying they're draconian and all this, it elicits the darkest, direst images of them, and it tends to stick. Whereas to say, well, their argument is this, and this is our argument, that doesn't always stick with people, especially people nowadays who are mentally lazy.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the communist in space, and he brings up an interesting point. He says Scientologists talk over their opponents and overwhelm their opponent to a breaking point. And I don't necessarily do the talking over them. I just usually cut them off when they're trying to moralize something. And to the overwhelming them to a breaking point, that is probably not the fairest way to argue with somebody, but it is very effective. If you can push them to be emotionally compromised, they're going to make mistakes. And you can force them to produce their argument in the most base or rudimentary fashion possible. And when you do that, a lot of people start to see through what they're saying. I'm in a weird place right now, because there's times when I say, you know, there's a time and place to be antagonistic, but generally, like, who was it? Was it Silver, or what's his name?
Silverblade, yeah.
Yeah, okay. As he was saying, you know, I'd rather be polite or a statesman, or and I agree with that, but at times I'm like, there's also a time to be a complete dick, because there's some people that you're just not going to convince, and the only way you can come out on top in those types of arguments is if you convince everybody else around them. And you don't do that by being polite like Bernie Sanders did, you know, when the Black Lives Matter took over his stage. No, that's a time when you say, no, fuck you, get the fuck off my stage.
Yeah, but I think that's. Go ahead.
With a lot of things in life, there's got to be a balance of things. You know, there's a time to be a statesman when people are just locked on, laser focused to what you're saying, and then there's a time to demonstrate absurdity by being absurd, like Rush Limbaugh had originally taught, like Milo pretty much exemplifies, and it's to draw people in and then use the statesman like mindset to keep them focused on what it is and draw them into the details. So, you know, it's like throwing up fireworks and then doing a national anthem afterwards. You know, you see the boom and the bang, and then you're like, okay, that's got me prepped to sing the national anthem or whatever, to pay attention to the message. So it's just it's a matter of balance and timing on all that.
Right. And that's kind of exactly, you know, what Isaac, what you were talking about. That's kind of what Trump did in the debates.
That's
you know,
exactly
if you
what
look
Trump
at,
did.
you know, he overwhelmed his opponents. He fucking, you know, brought the arguments down to the most base level. You know, basically, you know, just, you know, like some kind of schoolyard thing. Made fun of everybody. got the crowd to laugh, and and that's the way he won them over. It's real. It's from an intellect's point of view, it's real. It's really what word am I looking for? Unattractive. It's it's really to the verge of
that's a huge reason I didn't get on board with him.
Yeah, because he was so base and combative, and I understand that, but I see exactly how it worked too, because there's an innate, especially in people that are in the position of being in the middle class, because the only people that really get true representation to a middle class person are the poor and the rich. And the middle class, all they do is they bankroll, they bankroll the poor, and they compensate for the taxes that the rich aren't paying, right? And so they're pissed off in their heads. And when somebody says something that's pissed off, it resonates with them because it just taps into that base anger. I'm all into the psychology behind this stuff, man, because I think once you psychologically can pinpoint your opponent's weaknesses and trigger spots, you can pretty much own them. And you can do it both in a very combative way, or you can do it in a very subtle way too.
It's kind of like the Goldfinger, where James Bond is strapped to the table and he says, "What do you expect?" Yeah. Goldfinger, he's like, "I expect you to die."
You to die, right?
If you take a look at, like, say, Ben Shapiro, he's more statesman-like. He states his facts. He's almost like a laser scalpel, how he cuts things apart. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily draw people into, unless they really pay attention to what he says, because he just says it so rapidly and so almost monotonely. And then you got Milo, who is way over the top, and then you got President Trump, who he talks kind of goofy, but he says things at just the right time with the right amount of punch to hit you in the guts, like that whole you'd be in jail line that he said to Hillary in the debates. Those all are like one side or the other, or just not quite refined. But the best example of how to be a speaker, how to be a debater, is the godfather of the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan. He wasn't the great communicator just because he was an actor. He knew how to talk to people. He knew how to blend humor with straight talk without having to use highfalutin words like Obama always talked above people. Reagan talked to the people with a language that they understood and used humor to soften the harder blows.
Right. And he was brilliant at working with the Democrats, using those same exact talents, man. He and Tip O'Neill were basically friends. Mm-hmm. During that whole administration, in retrospect, I see how much shit they got done, man. That fucking administration got shit done. And then, of course, as soon as Reagan left, in HW, was the president, the Democratic Party started becoming lockstep, and they started doing the gridlock thing, right? And basically shut him down because they didn't want want him to get a second term. And that's the only way they did it, was by doing nothing. And so people said, well, that works. And so we've had 30 years of fucking Congress doing absolutely nothing except for Obamacare. And we saw how awesome that was. I'm not angry about this stuff at all, though.
See, the politician, the politician or the person that I would, I guess, say that I try to emulate in how I talk and reason things out, I guess, would be Rand Paul. Would be a huge one, because he was who I was supporting during the 2016 election. But like, out of all the politicians that are around now, like, he's the one that I can respect the most, I would say. And I just like the way he handles situations and the way he talks to people and the way he can just try to even reach across the aisle to, like, you know, he's pretty good at talking to Democrats even, and compared to a lot of other Republicans.
Right.
Right. It's this interesting. I'm seeing in the side conversation here. I'm sorry, Akam, I don't mean to interrupt you, but communists in space, my favorite Scottish communist, actually the only Russian Scottish communist was talking about how Reagan helped destroy the Soviet Union, and he, in concert with Pope John Paul, they systematically took out the Soviet Union two ways. Reagan broke them financially, and Pope John Paul broke them spiritually, and appealed to them through Poland, right? And that not perestroika, what was it called? Solidarity.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, yeah.
Was the big thing, and that spread through Ukraine and spread through. I'm obsessed with the Soviet Union because the stuff that went on there. I'm not as familiar, with Red China, but I know that they killed a lot more people. But just the way the whole Russian, the way the revolution went down, and then of course Lenin's reign, and then how. The fascinating thing is what happened when Lenin died, and how Stalin, who was basically a criminal, became the leader of the Soviet Union, and stayed that way for until he died in the 50s.
Well, I always found the Soviet Union interesting too. Now, one thing I would have to say is I'm not saying Reagan didn't do anything to help bring down the Soviet Union, but to really say that it was America who brought the Soviet Union down, I think regardless of what any American politicians did, the Soviet Union was bringing itself down. The Soviet Union would have collapsed regardless.
No, you're absolutely right.
But
any outside forces.
But on the other hand, though, if you look at past U.S. presidents dating back all the way to, even Truman, in each presidential term leading up to Reagan, there had been an advancement of communism throughout the world. During Eisenhower, Vietnam, spreading on, into Kennedy and FDR or LBJ, it spread to other countries around the world. But when Reagan became president, it was the first time that communism took a step back, starting with Grenada. It may have been a small, inconsequential island, but still, symbolically speaking, it was the first time that communism was turned away. And that was sort of like, a symbol of communism starting to fall. Also, during the 70s, what did the politicians all talk about? It was détente. Well, right. Reagan was like, no, screw that. We got Star Wars. You don't. I don't like your terms. You're not agreeing to mine. Screw you guys and get him and Reykjavik, So
exactly.
He stood up to the Soviets where other politicians did not. And because of that, and of course, the Soviets had their own problems, but like Afghanistan helped a big deal too. But if it wasn't for Reagan standing up to them, pushing communism back and outspending them or spending them in the ground, they would be a Soviet Union during the Clinton era.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He helped speed it up.
Mm-hmm.
Just think of the culture shock the Soviet Union must have experienced going from Carter to Reagan.
Oh my God, it scared the
Carter,
shit
by the way, is in my opinion the worst president ever.
Well, like the joke that Reagan had did on a radio address. It's like we've declared the Soviet Union to be illegal. Bombing begins in 5 minutes.
The missiles are on their way, man. Yeah. That was hilarious.
Let's see. Go
I
ahead.
don't think that was accidental either. I think that was deliberate. I think he knew what he was
Accidentally on purpose.
doing. Exactly.
Well, I'm not trying to I'm really not trying to undermine the work of any of the presidents who did anything to help fight against the Soviet Union, but it seems to me just by looking at like what the history of like the Soviet Union, like I really feel like they would have still collapsed around the same time that they did, just because their economy was building up to that point. And because I think a lot of it was actually Gorbachev, because Gorbachev introducing the glasnost and all that other kind of stuff that allowed just slightly greater freedoms for the people, barely, but just slight more freedoms. And
what do you think
it kind of
motivated
screwed with the government?
Yeah. Go ahead, Silverblade. You're asking the right question.
Yeah. What do you think it was that motivated Gorbachev to initiate the whole glasnost thing? It didn't come out of a vacuum.
By the way, I think along with Reagan, Thatcher deserves a lot of credit.
Oh God, yes.
Right. It was a squeeze play that they put on him. Exactly.
It was the best example of the right leaders at the exact right time.
Exactly. And I think that Adamantine, you said that Carter was the worst president. I think it's in the history in 20 years, it's going to be a tie between he and Obama.
No, I don't think it's going to be a tie at all. I think Obama has the credit for making Carter not look as worthless as he was.
I think a solid case can be made for either,
Mm-hmm.
but
I think the worst president.
Carter was just one of those people that was so weak. I just want to spit on him.
Well, yeah, and they were both like overeducated and highly intellectual. Very, very, very cerebral.
Yeah, I still think he ran the country like a peanut farmer would.
Well, yeah, man, he did.
Hey, you don't have enough energy to heat your house? Oh, put on a sweater.
Right. Everybody's on the honor system.
Didn't he actually give a speech at one point in time where he more or less, to paraphrase, said, "Things aren't going to be as good as they used to be. We just need to get used to it."
Yeah, it was.
It's like, what the hell kind of president would ever say something like that? Even if they believe it, they're meant to inspire the country, not depress them.
Even if it were true.
Well, it was considered what the Great Morass or something like that. That it was called. Because I remember the speech you're talking about.
Yeah, he called it. Yeah. Oh God, what's the word? Not miasma, but it starts with the letter M.
Yeah, I was thinking morass.
Morass is melancholia. Oh shit, I'm gonna have to look it up because it's
Either way, it was very not uplifting, and Reagan was extremely uplifting, which is why he blew him out of the water when it come to the election.
Right.
Same with Mondale too. I mean, well, it didn't take much to blow him out of the water.
That was not exactly Mr. Personality.
A stick could have done better.
His daughter was hot.
She's dead now.
Yeah, but she was gorgeous, man.
See,
yeah. Isaac?
In 2030. What were you gonna say?
Wait, what?
Hello?
I heard 2030.
No.
Go ahead.
No, well, I was gonna say something, but
go ahead, dude.
Okay. I was just gonna say that in 2036, hopefully you'll be seeing Occam's razor running for president.
That would be beautiful, man. Yeah, he said that the country was in a state of malaise. That's the word, which means a prolonged, depressed state. And it was a perfect description. I mean, it was honest, probably the most honest shit that U.S. president has ever said. But it was like, oh, yeah, okay, great. Thanks, bud.
And then after that, we got it's morning in America.
Well, dude, we were waiting in line for 20 minutes to get gas.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was just like, the lines were. I mean, I remember that shit.
I vaguely remember it because I was probably like 3 years old, 4 years old at the time.
I started driving 2 years before all that shit started happening, man. And I remember, I was like 17 years old and just waiting in line to get gas, and I had like $5, and I got like 1.75 gallons for that. It was like, I was driving some kind of like a Malibu, they just fucking guzzled gas.
Lamboats.
Yeah, exactly. Land yacht, baby. Drive that baby.
Yep.
Oh, man. So is it limerick time yet?
Oh, limerick time. I forgot to bring a limerick. I got to go on Google.
Well, I'm gonna count the last week when you quoted a limerick, which was exactly the same limerick that I was going to use. So I got a bonus credit for a limerick. So I'm good this week.
All right. How about this? A comely young widow named Ransom was ravished 3 times in handsome. When she cried out for more, a voice from the floor cried, "Lady, I'm Simpson, not Samson." Okay. That's what I get from just picking one out, man. Oh,
that's because everyone was busy looking one up.
Oh, it really didn't make sense, man. I'm looking at it going, what the fuck does that mean?
I think that the key to the limerick is the speed of which you say it and the flow to it. Whereas the way you were saying it was kind of stilted and just like, what?
Yeah, it was because I was trying to figure out what I was saying about an 80-year-old accused of rape was mort. The judge did his best. Oh, come on, man. Never mind.
You got to read these before you.
No shit. That's horrible. I was cleaning a house in the nude, and the neighbor's girl, I said, was rude for not closing the drapes while I scoured and scraped, and it made her quite ill, so she sued. That was a little bit better.
There you go. Had a better flow to it.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Dual wield will have to fix you up on that kind of stuff.
School our asses, man. That's right. We are seriously rhyme deficient this week.
Well, we're just too damn white, and Eminem took all the rapping talent this week, which was rather low as it was apparently.
I was having, interesting you should mention that, because in one of his videos this week, Ranting Monkey had said something to the effect of, and it was a quote, and I don't want to, it's out of context really. So, but something to the effect of, that society, doesn't necessarily endorse criminality now. And I was thinking, well, fuck, man, the 90s, that's all that was going on, especially with rap music, is that these kids were like glorifying criminals and, pimps and shit. And, Habit, like,
well, hell, they tried to elect one as president and she didn't win.
Nice. I like it.
Zing!
Like the sagging pants, that all comes from prison, man. And nobody knows that. That's really you're presenting yourself for submission.
Code for get over here, big boy.
Yeah, it's like
supposedly.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it was. What it was implying that to survive, you were ready to give it up, and it's just really strange how people kind of forget that for that whole generation kind of embraced that whole criminal mindset. And we Americans as a whole do this. And I think it happens in Britain too, but we do that. We kind of
glorify the anti-hero
or glorify criminality. Yeah. And the criminals,
Yeah.
Like in the 1800s, everybody, was like the James gang, were kind of seen as heroic. I don't know. That was just, my wife and I had talked about that this week, and I remembered I wanted to pop that into the group.
Well, a lot of the most popular comic book characters are kind of that way. I mean, you got, Punisher, Wolverine, Deadpool,
Yeah.
They're all characters that are, they're called anti-heroes, but they're, heroes don't kill. They stand for the high moral ground, whereas these guys.
Well, that's why
kill.
the anti-heroes are more likable than heroes.
Mm-hmm.
The heroes are too goody-goody.
They get to do the things that we always wish we could, but couldn't get away if we tried to do.
But don't we need a Captain America though to kind of provide the example of of what we're to strive for?
Well, we do, but the problem is like in the comics, they turn him into a Hydra agent.
Well, see, that's the whole point. It's like, why in the fuck would they do that, man? Because it totally zapped his value.
Mm-hmm.
As the formula. Isaac, what did you think about that, man? Are you a comic book geek, or are you too cool for school over there?
I was for a long time.
Right.
Now I didn't stop stop being a comic book nerd because like one day I just thought, oh, this is gay or something.
Yeah.
My dad, he gave me all of his comic books from the 70s. I mean, this was like Teen Titans and Batman and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like in pristine condition. And I was like, that's actually really impressive for somebody who's like in his, his childhood to take care of his comics that well.
Indeed.
And then my mom found them one day.
Uh-oh.
And they just disappeared. Because they're divorced, so I'm guessing she did it out of like, fuck this guy, and she probably knew they were his. And I mean, this was probably a stack of like 140 comics, easily. And
I worked at a comic book store for almost 10 years. I know your story, bro. I know your story.
Yeah, and I was so like saddened by the whole thing that I just never picked up comics again because it would always remind me of that.
Yeah, make you sick to your stomach. I bet. That's so sad.
Yeah, so I kind of just write off comics now. They're like, oh, check this out. I'm like, I can't.
I see we have a lady in our midst.
It's a lady.
I don't think I've ever been accused of that.
Hey, Red.
Sorry I'm late, guys. I took an old person nap today.
That's what she said.
Well, you got here just in time for the.
That's the one thing every man loves to hear. Sorry, I'm late.
Oh shit! Yeah.
How are you feeling after last night?
Oh God, yeah. Oh, I was up so late, but it was so much fun. But I found some dirty limericks for you guys.
Yeah, we're time for dirty limericks.
All right, so.
Go for it.
There was an old whore pulling tricks who at one time could have handled 5 pricks. One day she did cry. She pulled out her glass eye. Tell the boys I now can take 6.
I like that shit.
Yeah, she'll keep an eye out for you too.
All right. Oh God, where's the other one go? Oh, okay. There was a man from Leeds who swallowed a packet of seeds. Great tufts of grass grew out of his ass, and his balls were infested with weeds.
That's a good one too. That's a classic.
I found one.
All right, go for it.
All right. There once was a man from East Kent whose tool was so long that it bent.
Oh God, we did this last week.
To save her some trouble, he folded it double, and instead of coming, he went.
That's the one that Irate stole from me last week.
I think, man, as a matter of fact, I think that one got said like 3 times that night.
Yeah, you did it, then
Really?
Duel did it, and then I was like, screw it, I'm not doing it. You guys all did it for me.
All right, I've got mine.
All right, go for it, bro.
There was a young sailor from Brighton who remarked to his girl, "You're a tight one." She replied, "Oh my soul, you're in the wrong hole. There's plenty of room in the right one."
That's good.
How about this one? All right, there once was a fella from Yuma who told an elephant joke to a puma. Now his skeleton lies under the hot western skies, and the puma had no sense of humor.
I've got one. It's not dirty though.
That's fine.
Funk it up, bro.
A researcher by name of Stan came up with an ingenious plan. It caused quite a shock for all chicks of good stock, but on such studies, there is now a ban.
I like it, man. It's some of the clean ones can be excellent. They don't always have to be dirty, but sometimes the dirtiness will make up for the.
Well, the clean ones help your imagination turn it into a dirty one.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see. I found an anti-limerick.
Well, Red, I was going to briefly introduce you to Isaac.
Oh, hi.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Hello.
Hello, Isaac. I'm just a ginger asshole. Don't mind me.
Ginger power.
Nice. Yeah, welcome to this stream that has gone off the rails.
It was on rails.
It was. It started out really clean and academic.
And then I showed up.
Yeah. Just got fucked.
You're welcome, guys.
It is the cream stream, so I guess you can cream eloquently, or you can just cream dirty.
Or you can rise to the
It's
top.
up to you how you cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavy on that shit.
All right. Here's another limerick. I don't know if we did this last week or not. So, there once was a fellow O'Doul who found little red spots on his tool. His doctor, a cynic, said, "Get out of me clinic and wipe off that lipstick, you fool."
That's the one with House. I found that one earlier. It's got House's face on it.
That's cool.
That's awesome. That's a funny one.
Oh,
I didn't know there's actually a thing called an anti-limerick.
Okay.
Anti-limerick.
An anti-limerick.
What is that?
All right, so an example of this is there was a young man from Japan whose limericks never would scan. When asked why this was, he replied, "It's because I always try to fit as many syllables into the last line as ever possibly I can." But basically, an anti-limerick can be mocked or parodied. These parodies are called anti-limericks. And
right. Yeah. There once was a man. All right, here. All right. I bet I'd be really good at this. Listen. There once was a man from Nantucket whose prick was so long he could suck it. He said with a grin as he wiped off his chin, "I think I need to go to the bathroom."
Yeah. That's just wrong.
It's called dropping the punchline.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. They actually did this thing. It's called The Bible in Limericks. Each chapter in verse. Like, are they serious that they did a version? No, that can't be right. They couldn't have made the Bible into a limerick. That would be
probably
wrong.
do the Sermon in the Mount as a limerick. I think that would work. Or what is it? The Beatitudes, that song "Turned" by the Byrds. That's what that is. That's from the Bible. Mm-hmm. I'm from the South. We have to memorize the Bible from cover to cover, or else we gonna go to hell.
Or you get the willow switch across your ass.
Yeah. Go pick a switch.
That's right.
Oh God! And then that seemingly never-ending process because you pick one that was too small, they whip your ass with, and you go back, you think you're going to be bright and get one of the big ones that like, oh, this will be better, and nope, you get your ass beat with a big one, and it's a miserable process.
My parents, they skipped all that. They went from hand to spoon to belt to cast iron ash shovel from the fireplace.
Oh,
holy shit!
God damn!
Oh my God! I joke about parents in the South beating the bat out of you, but oh my God.
Hey, we do it different in the northern Midwest. I'll tell you that much.
Ain't nobody gonna hear it.
That's for sure.
It's the lack of hills, man.
Needless to say, I have developed a very, very high pain tolerance.
I bet.
Hell yeah.
God.
And I learned some dance moves.
Come here, boy.
Oh my God.
You remember those commercials where the little kid is like stuffing toilet paper down the back of his pants, and he goes down a slide and falls on his butt, and it's like it's all okay. He's got like 6 inches of toilet paper and stuffed in the back of his pants. Well, that was me, my brother, and sister when we were younger and very naughty, and the ash shovel comes off of the brick near the fireplace. Yeah.
Oh my God.
6 inches of padding is not enough. I'll tell you that.
That Cheech and Chong thing, earache my eye.
Yes.
You should look that up. It's funny as shit.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it like, man, I thought Hispanic parents and grandparents were bad, but like you guys are on a whole fucking different level.
Dude, man, getting whipped by by the belt. Mama, man, my grandmother, she would make me pick the most wispy switch, right? And it would you would think, okay, this isn't gonna hurt at all. Man, those motherfuckers hurt like shit.
Especially the young willows.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, man.
The green ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Had a nice spring in the switch.
Exactly.
Holy
Sound like a kung fu fucking sound effect, man.
When I was in private school, there was a guy there. I think he was like deacon of the church or something like that. He said that when he was a kid, what his dad would do is he'd get a 6-foot strand of copper wire, and fray it all out till he gets like maybe 3 or 4 little strands of 6 foot of copper wire, thin little strands, and he'd use that as a whip. That would strip chunks of hide off your ass.
Oh no!
I expect great novels from all of you.
Oh man!
Oh God.
Jesus fuck, man.
Dude.
I gotta mute this.
I know, and now it's like fucking illegal. It's like you get family services called on your ass. And shit.
Hell, if you so much as offend someone, you can go to jail.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, words are now violence.
It's only illegal if someone finds out. So, at least that's what my uncle told me.
Well, if you get caught, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I could slip in that child molestation joke.
Man, I knew it was where, man, it was like, that sounds a little...
It's only illegal if you get caught. If someone finds out they're a witness, you have an extra hold a dick.
Ah.
Also true.
And we all know that roses grow best with bone meal. So that's why my mom's got a beautiful rose garden.
Hey, y'all, Uzi just walked in. She wants to say hello to everyone.
Oh.
Ready? This is my wife.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
I just got home from work. Just thought I'd say hello.
Hey, Uzi.
Hello.
Was that it?
Welcome to the
Hello,
stream.
Isaac. Hello.
Speak
Awesome.
up.
Hello, Red. Hello.
Hold on. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Ceradamantine and
Silver.
Silverblade.
Hey,
And our special guest tonight is Isaac.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
from El Paso. Sorry,
Yeah, it's me.
I'm gonna go now.
I'm going to go now.
Yeah, we were very, very briefly classed up.
Sounded extremely southern tonight, man.
I found another good dirty limerick.
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right, so there once was a man. Oh, what's that
All right.
Is
noise?
everybody okay?
Oh, sorry. Give me a
Someone committing a murder there, and we're witness to it.
Okay.
It's amazing how much noise you can make just moving your microphone or your headset.
It'll be live on the news tomorrow.
Go ahead,
Captured
Adam.
live.
There once was a man from Sprocket who went for a ride in a rocket. The rocket went bang, his balls went clang, and he found his dick in his pocket.
Whoops. With all that noise, maybe that's what was happening.
See, do y'all see now? Do y'all see why I love limericks so much?
Oh, I've always loved limericks.
It just, I don't know, the idea of making that part of this deal. I don't know. It's just, it was probably one of the better ideas I've had about this thing. So,
I never really knew about the power of the limerick until, like, you started bringing it up, and then I just started looking at a whole bunch of limericks. And I'm like, wow, these are actually funny. Like, I had heard people talk about them before, but like I never actually knew they were actually that good.
Oh yeah, I mean, growing up, that was like what. Those were the first forms of jokes I heard were limericks, and they were ones you told on the playground outside of earshot of mom, dad, and all the family. Is like, hey, guess what I heard? And they were always dirty. Yeah, always. So I'm really surprised. Seriously, on this list, there's actually a mathematical limerick.
Oh dear.
I was like,
go for it.
Oh God. Okay, mine. It has a mathematical equation at the top, but the translation of it is a dozen, a gross, and a score plus 3 to 4 divided by 7 plus 5 times 11 is 9 squared and not a bit more. I'm like, that would be something my oldest child would just, she would have looked at the equation and be like, oh, that rhymes. I'd look at it and see, hey, it's numbers.
Sweet.
See, I come from an Irish family, so my grandpa was the one that always was telling us dirty Irish limericks. Good stuff. I just can't remember most of them, though.
I feel like most of my brain faculty will be gone by the time I'm like 50. So I'll be like this raving drunk with my grandchildren, you know? I'll like begin by telling them like a limerick and then just delve into other shit. Like, there once was a man from Nantucket. Fuck all of you, I hate you, you ruined my life.
That's awesome, dude.
Where is this coming from?
This is kind of where I rate that now.
You're fucking showing. Get out of here. God damn it.
Limericks.
Fuck you.
21st century.
Whoops. Wow. Man, whatever.
Hey, as long as they're not politically correct, it's all good to me.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah, I always laugh when someone on that I know from YouTube is asking me like, is that okay with Hispanics or something? Like, we don't give a fuck. Like, I think it's funny. I was talking to a bit of Brit earlier this week, and she was like, well, don't most like people of color get along? I was like, no. Like, Mexican Americans largely hate black people. And I was like, and then Puerto Ricans hate Mexicans, and then Cubans hate both of them, and then Guatemalans hate all of them, and the Hondurans hate all of them, except the Mexicans. And like, it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, I remember one day, it was Cinco de Mayo, right? Mm-hmm. And I was at this restaurant, and I went and I was like, one of the guys was up there, and I said, hey man, happy Cinco de Mayo. And he looks at me and goes, I'm Guatemalan.
Yeah.
You know, and he looked at me like the biggest fuck you stare I've ever got. I'm like, all righty, man. Sorry about that.
It's just like with Asians where they go, what? I'm not fucking Korean. I'm Japanese, you piece of shit. And it's like, oh man, why do they get so upset? And it's like, it's not because you didn't know what they were, because they largely can't tell either, but it's because they hate the thing that you thought they were.
Right.
Well, you know, with white people, we have it kind of similar. I mean, there's Americans, but then you look at the Brits, the Aussies, and the New Zealanders, and people get their accents confused, and they may get a little irate about it, but they're not like, fuck you, I hate the Aussies, or fuck you, I hate the New Zealanders or the Kiwis. You know, they don't really get that jacked out of shape. They're just like, okay, yeah, we're white, we speak similar, whatever, you know, but they don't like, fuck you and may your family die in a fire.
Right, here's the way it is in the South, and it was it's really strange. Anyway, Georgia, all right, Georgia hates on Alabama. Alabama hates on Mississippi, right? We're going west. Mississippi hates on Louisiana. All right, now Louisiana and Mississippi will usually hate on Tennessee. All right, Tennessee will hate on Kentucky. Kentucky hates. We're going in a clockwise deal, or yeah, it's clockwise. Kentucky hates on North Carolina. North Carolina hates on South Carolina, and South Carolina hates on Georgia. Right?
And all of them hate on Arkansas?
No, well, Arkansas, it depends on who you talk to. Sometimes they say, well, they're more the Midwest because they're on the other side of the Mississippi. But everybody in the South hates like everything but the panhandle of Florida because it's not Florida. They're not Southerners, right? Only the panhandle, the northern part of Florida is Southerners. The rest of it are like Yankees, basically.
Yeah. Well, I remember going down to Miami Beach, and it seemed like that there was Brazilians, Chileans, like everyone, like it's like the United Nations all in one hotel, and they were working there. So it was, people from all over the place. It wasn't like you didn't hear a Southern accent in Miami Beach.
No, you won't.
You hear different accents from all over the world, and they all had different backgrounds and stuff, but it was like, wait a minute, we're in the deepest part of the South, aren't we? Well, you're South, but that doesn't mean the deep South.
Exactly. You'll catch some Southerners in the Keys, though. They some of the richer folks will migrate down there that don't fit in with the rich folks, of course, in their native states.
Well, we all know that like half the people in Florida are originally from Michigan anyway, so.
And New York, yep.
Good old snowbirds.
Oh man.
Oh my god. Oh, here we go. Oh, I found actually a really cute website for you guys for dirty limericks. I'm gonna put it over here on the side chat for you guys to check out. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing things in song and verse from now on. I swear to God. But to give you an idea, the first one it says there once was a fellow McSweeney who spilled some gin on his weenie, and just to be couth, he added vermouth, then slipped his girlfriend a martini.
What a god!
I found,
yes.
I found some good limericks here. There was a young girl of Cape Cod who thought babies were fashioned by God, but 'twas not the Almighty who hiked up her nighty. 'Twas Roger the Lodger by God.
Oh God.
Good old Roger the Lodger, man. That's right.
And then there's
I'll have to remember that one because that's my dad's name.
So, there was a young maid from Madras who had a magnificent ass, not rounded and pink, as you probably think. It was gray, had long ears, and ate grass.
Hee-haw. That's all right. Breathe the tender young man from Australia. My darling, please let me unveil you. And then by his own, if you'll kindly lie prone, I'll endeavor, my sweet, to impale you.
Oh my god.
That actually worked.
What a rundown.
Yeah, I know. It sounds slightly rapey, doesn't it?
Just a little bit.
You're endorsing rape culture.
I had $1 for every time I'd heard that. I have like $9.
Well, in that really is like a tweet I popped out, and I'm really proud of it this week. I was saying that Hollywood, the virtue signaling Hollywood elite, was literally a cesspool of literal fucking rape culture. I mean, is that not by definition what was going on with Harvey Weinstein? Is that not rape culture or what?
It was. It really was.
Crazy. Yeah, I know. We were talking about this last night, weren't we, Red?
Yeah, so we started to touch on that. I was like, oh, you've got something you're going to do on the Harvey Weinstein thing. But yeah, no, it's pretty sad. And then considering Hollywood is like the central for liberals and, left wings, and then they turn around and they've got people like everybody's giving Ben Affleck crap about the interview they did, him and that girl.
Yeah.
For Jersey Girl. And the lady, she actually released a statement saying, wait a minute, that was a show he and I put on all the time. And it was something that she was a part of, and they never acted like that off camera. It was just a joke. But there are other instances where he was, you know, he got a little frisky with other people. But it seems everybody knows this is happening. And they're talking about the average white man and the rape culture. Yet here they are just wallowing around in it. And, you know, maybe it's just displaced victimhood. You know, they're like, okay, well, we can't do anything about ours, so we'll go protect those that don't need protecting.
Well, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman been talking about crap about this thing kind of stuff for decades, and like nothing has ever come of it until Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, Michael Jackson
Well,
and shit.
Yeah.
Well, now in today's times, you have proof. There's emails. There's, you know, it used to be basically you sent a letter to somebody with a complaint. If it got thrown away, all you could do is say, "Oh, well, I've got a copy of the letter." Well, prove it's what you actually sent.
Right.
You know, prove it was sent at that time.
Right.
You know, and but now there's tweets, there's emails, there's video footage, there's, you know, you really can't do anything without being caught.
That always makes me wonder, like back when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s and stuff, you know, you hear little whispers about certain things, and not just about, you know, sexual misconduct and all that, but other things. And it was always just kind of in the background, or not, you know, like poo-pooed as a conspiracy theory and all that. And then now we're in a time where everybody has a cell phone with a camera, and it's everywhere, that there's something being recorded everywhere. And now this stuff is coming up, and it's just like an explosion of stupid, you know, and it makes you wonder, well, shit, if it's this bad now, how bad was it 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, just look at like with Marilyn Monroe and all of them, the literal casting couch back then. I mean, how many Hollywood starlets went in?
You mean casting lap?
Yeah, basically, they would have to go to dinner with these men and fawn all over them, touch them, and, you know, basically not even just put out, but act like they wanted it. They had to act like they wanted it, and it was pretty severe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no wonder. I mean, the child actors had it really bad back then, and then even some of the male actors, that especially like some of like the homosexual ones. Good God, help them. So Hollywood's just always been toxic. I mean, the industry for entertainment in general, for plays, ballets, anything that you could think of that was mass entertainment for the human populace, there was always some kind of scandal or something going on behind the scenes. Yeah. Seems like entertainment and politicians always have a scandal going on.
Keeps them busy.
Let me read a headline I just came across. Michael Moore speaks out on Weinstein. We can seize this moment to bring...
What?
Michael Moore speaks out on Weinstein. We can... Oh, this is his quote. We can seize the moment to bring down white male hierarchy.
Oh my God.
It's already being twisted.
You know how that message should have started? Is a video clip of Michael Moore saying, "Ho, ho, 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 bring me Solo and a Wookiee."
I think it's I think it's pretty safe to say no one ever tried to take advantage of him sexually.
Maybe
they took advantage of others so that way he couldn't. So any excuse not to be sexually intimate or near that Jabba wannabe.
Jabba wannabe. He's definitely a Jabba.
Hey, once you get past 6 chins, you're definitely Jabba.
He's also starting to look more and more like a woman as he gets older.
Well, I was going to say that's why he did nothing but documentaries. Think about it. You know,
who wants him as a leading man?
Who wants? You know, what actress is going to work for him? Hello, you know, knowing you know the test they got to pass to get that job. Man. Shit.
That's a casting couch no one wants to be on.
Even porn stars would turn it down and give him money.
Somebody said something about chins. Man. He's got more chins than a fucking Chinese phone book, right?
Yep.
I
know. As soon as you said something about 6 chins, I'm like, oh my God. Here's my inner racist back to those jokes. But no, the sad part is my mind automatically went to that joke.
Yeah.
I kind of figured that was the way it would go because I was hoping someone would pick it up and I set it up and someone else would knock it down. So thank you, Ira.
You're welcome. Well, it's like when fucking drunken uncle does it, man. Everybody laughs and shit, man. And I say it, and it's like, you're a racist, man. Oh man.
See, I've gotten so desensitized being called a racist because I get called it all the time that I'm like, so.
Yeah, that's an effective tactic against it. It's yeah, I don't care.
Well, it's like you know, we were talking about earlier about arguments and stuff. I was thinking, have you ever seen Vegan Gaines do one of his deals and one of his little debates with somebody about you know, veganism and how moral it is and all that stuff? And basically the only way you can, you know, you've beat Vegan Gaines when he calls you a sociopath or a psychopath.
Which is ironic considering the source.
Man, you read my mind because it's so obvious, you know, when he's like, you know, pointing guns and shit and saying, you know, it's like, you know, you'd rather, you know, I'd rather stab a human than a cow. It's like, okay.
He's so roided up, it's not even funny.
Yep. Nobody,
he's insane.
Yeah. The old, you know, see, in vegans, you know, we've come to the belief that actually they are a true religion. They've become you know, so.
Well,
that apparently, based on what's happening to pagan, they're a true religion that has terrorists too.
Somebody else was bringing up a good point about the person that's supposedly doxing pagan. Is so far the only communication anybody's had is that one email, and it looks kind of weird. So I don't know how much they're actually doing this on purpose, or they're actually going to do it, or I don't know. It just seems weird to me, the whole situation with that.
All right, somebody fill me in on this, man. I am I don't know about this.
From what I've paid attention to, Pagan Minotaur was he wanted to debate Vegan Gaines and others, and he did some vegan debate videos. And apparently he got some of the vegan community trolling him and angry at him. And then he noticed, and correct me if anybody else knows if I'm wrong here, but he noticed there was a few comments on some of his videos. And he thought for sure it was his backyard neighbor, the house behind his. And it's this Muslim family that have adopted the vegan lifestyle. That they have a problem with him because he is... from what I remember, Native American, and they see him as a pagan and something to be cleansed from his area. And now they sent out an email to people like Suit Yourself, The Void, and others. I think Madwoman Muses got an email as well. But the email said was, this is Pagan Minotaur's real name. This is his address. This is basically all his... And says, you have streamed with him or promoted his channel, and if he doesn't remove his animal slaughtering content within 2 weeks, then we'll release this to the public. And then they mentioned that he was struggling for custody of his children. And they the end of the line was something along the lines of, and he might lose his custody battle with his children. Boo-hoo.
Christ.
So.
They sent it to the wrong people, though, because did you see what someone did?
I know some people were going to sign them up for ads and free trials because the lady left her email address in there. But see, what I found weird, and knowing the Muslim folks that I know, is yes, I don't really know that many Muslims that are actually vegan. They practice halal and the not eating pork, but even then they can eat pork but get forgiven for it. There's lots of instances where they can actually consume pork.
Someone replied to her email, though, with a picture of her house and a picture of her husband.
Oh, shit.
That's just getting things too personal.
Yeah, and here's the other screwed up part is, and this is where I find it weird, most of the people that were contacted in that email are men, and it was supposedly the wife who sent the email out.
That's weird.
I'm like, that, yeah, it's like... I don't want to say, this is complete horseshit. No, I'm just like, my radar's up of something's not sounding right here.
Well, I think the people that got the email were people that he had worked with in the past. other YouTubers that he had done stuff with.
Right.
What was that? Sorry, that skipped out for me.
The people who were sent the email were people that YouTubers who had worked with him in the past.
Yes. Either they had actually had him on their channel or had promoted him in some form of way. So, yeah, they all had connection with him. And, yeah, if they wanted to do this to their friend, if they knew anything about the community and other threats that had gone, that would be a real stupid move for someone to do. But apparently Pagan did go to his local police department, which is the smart thing to do. He actually went to the police and he put he put in a report because it is a local problem. And now he had gone before when they had left comments in his YouTube videos. He'd gone to report the harassment, and now since he does have proof because of the email and the contact, the threats, it's direct threats. You can't get around that. And so he actually went and reported it to the police, and I don't know what happened from there. And I'm hoping, if these people are doing this, don't stop making your videos just because these people are assholes. But so,
I don't get the impression he's even thinking of doing that.
That's just fucked up, man. I really don't know. That's you got to draw the line on that shit, man. Like,
and Pagan Minotaur makes really decent content, especially considering a tablet device to do his animations, his editing, and all that.
yeah,
So I mean, the guy really works hard to make his content.
it's good stuff. You know, everything that I've seen of it, it's been. You know, I've liked everything that I've seen. There's nothing that's made me go, oh fuck. You know?
Right. Oh, good night, Academic Cub. They're calling it a night.
Oh, Aki. Yeah, everybody's going to sleep. Yeah, I told people that I would open it up about a quarter till. If anybody was
Almost there.
Yeah. So, are y'all into that?
I'm into group things. I take all comers.
Oh, I ain't touching that one, man.
There's video footage to prove it.
Right. Oh God. Yeah. Oh, I'm a terrible human being. Just ask me. You don't have to ask other people. I'll tell you, I'm a terrible person.
It's the ginger way of life.
It's all these souls on my skin, man. They all scream at once for attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hey, you guys give us the souls. We'll take them, and we get the little spots to store them in.
Are you redheaded too, man?
I was born a redhead.
Okay.
As I got older, my hair turned blonde and all, but yeah, still got the red streaks in my beard.
Occam's kind of a strawberry, isn't he? Aren't you?
Who?
Aren't you kind of a strawberry blonde or?
It's like a bald lunk to me.
I'm not a redhead at all. I'm more of a blonde. It kind of depends on the length of my hair, because when I have it like cut way shorter, it looks lighter blonde, and then when I let it grow out just a little bit longer and bushier, it's still blonde, but it's kind of like a darker blonde, borderline getting to the point where it kind of looks almost like it could be brown. Like, I don't know. My hair color is kind of hard to describe.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, man. My hair is like dark blonde, almost strawberry blonde, kind of.
It really depends on the thickness of my hair, like how cut it's short. I mean, how short it's cut.
Right? Well, see, I've got mood hair, is what my daughter and I both, but she's not so much of a ginger. She has red undertones, though. Oh, excuse me, freaking wine. But our hair will change color. I swear, from day to day, there'll be different like brightnesses and vibrances and all that. And my brother and I were both born like fire engine red, like seriously red, curly hair, right? And then my brother grew up, and we found out that my mom used to have hair just like ours, but when she hit about 25, 30, her hair turned what she calls brown, but the rest of the world would say is black, and that it just changed one day. Mine never changed. It goes orange every once in a while in the summer, you know, get that whole copper cab kind of thing going. But no, other than that, it's the one thing I love about being a redhead is we don't go silver or whitish or gray or whatever. It'll turn actually white with tinges of pink in it.
Yep, that's like my dad is a copper redhead, and yeah, his gets like that. So basically, with the mood hair thing, you're actually more like a cuttlefish, then, right?
Yeah, more like a cuttlefish. Yep.
There's your new avatar picture right there. Red head
Right?
on a cuttlefish body.
Yeah, I gotta get a cuttlefish with a ginger wig or something. I gotta get my 17-year-old to draw that. She's the one who drew this avatar and my other one.
Just
That's
don't go.
great.
Just don't go the whole hentai thing.
Oh no, I was totally gonna have her do that because she does the anime style drawings, and I was like, "That's it. I need a hentai cuttlefish with a red hair."
Okay, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up and throw it out there. So if anybody wants to pop in, I did. I unleashed the Kraken.
Oh my god,
Cuttlefish is close.
I found red-headed limericks.
Oh
Let's see.
Lord.
'Twas a red-headed lady from Kent, taking all the men wherever she went. Then down by the old wharf met a well-hung young dwarf, and a night rocking the boat was spent.
That's right. I like it. I like it. Well, Isaac, what's your opinion on this stream, man? How has your experience been, in your opinion?
It's been great. I love conversation. So sometimes I like to sit back and just listen.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a voyeur that way, I guess.
Kinky.
Which sounds weirder out loud than it did in my head.
No, I think we all are kind of in a way. This whole group. You're right.
Yeah, but I mean, I've always enjoyed listening to new people to me.
Yeah.
I I don't think it comes out very often when I'm on these sorts of streams that I'm kind of a shithead, but I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, like I know that the academic thing is really what I harp on most. But yeah, I like the limericks and shit too.
Lightens the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the first half of the show was really good. And I think we covered a lot of territory with talking about the. I put a link, Red, and let's see, did I put it in the side chat there?
You put it in the feed chat over here on your YouTube video. It's there.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that. You'll see on the inside the chat, the stream,
And
the hangout, right above between Occam and Isaac. It's the fire.org. There's so it was a survey that was taken by some. You know what? It might not. I didn't think about that. It might not be in your.
I'm not seeing it over here. I'm not seeing it anywhere.
The memory. Let me see. I'll copy the link and pop it in again, and I'll do it. There you go. Yeah, and that you might want to use this next week because it was some interesting stuff. Nothing really too surprising, really, but there was some. They were able to quantify opinions about. Like 48% of the students that they surveyed thought that hate speech was not covered in the First Amendment.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking big, man.
Well, it's young people, right? You're saying students,
right.
Yeah. And what the problem is the group mind, the group mentality that. Unfortunately, they all go along to get along, and they're hearing from their teachers, their professors, their friends' parents, their parents that hate speech is wrong, and then any teacher who does try to teach these children that no, it covers the freedom of speech. We start censoring or saying what kind of speech is allowed or not. Those teachers are crucified. Those parents are crucified.
Right, and the kids that are just now entering college. They were about 9 or 10 years old when Barack Obama got elected, and you know, there was a huge change in the way that, you know, school subjects were, you know.
Oh God, the
addressed and
history
everything.
books and everything. Yeah, and then
Exactly, man.
sensitivities, and then they did the whole school lunch reform thing. And
Right.
I mean, no, it's pretty sad when American kids were coming home from school starving like kids in third world countries. That, you know, no, that honestly, that's something that parents need to reach out to their kids about. I have 4 children, 3 of my daughters that live with me, and I tell them all the time, because my middle child, the almost 10-year-old, she will tell me, "Oh, Mom, Trump this, Trump that," you know, because I voted for Trump. I won't ever deny that, and I think he's doing a pretty good job for what he's got. He was the lesser of the evils. There was no way I was going to vote Hillary into office again. I mean, she already had her turn when her husband was there. So, but I remember growing up that Reagan, everybody's like, "Oh, Reagan's great, Reagan's great." And when people asked me, I'm like, "Oh, who was your favorite president?" And for a long time, I was like, "Oh, well, Ronald Reagan." And they would ask me why, and I couldn't tell them. All I could tell them was that he was a great person, that he did amazing things for this country, but I couldn't give you one example because nobody talked about the examples. They just talked about the president as if he was the greatest thing ever. And I think that's what happened with the Obama thing too. Was everybody talked him up so much, and oh, first black president, and this, that, and the other. And so now the kids are like, "Oh, well, we should give him a break." And Obama was a great president. And so I tell my kids, I try not to talk too political around them, but we listen to talk radio in the vehicle. But I tell them, I'm like, "No, don't just take my opinion. Okay, this is my opinion. I'm neither Democrat nor Republican or third party or whatever. I'm human, I'm American, and then I make my decisions off of that." And they need to do the same thing, is don't pick a party or a candidate just because your mom or your dad or your grandma, because my mother-in-law and I completely disagree when it comes to politics. Like, that's one of the only things we ever disagree about. So
well, there's the thing that people have to be taught is not the surface, but the substance. You know, a lot of people, they hear that whole phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover," but that's all people do, is judge books by their cover, and they never actually read the books. They never ruminate over the sentences. They just look at the cover and maybe the pictures, and that's that. And it's indicative of what a lot of kids are being taught in school, is what is on the cover, but not what's going on in the story itself.
yeah, and that's really sad. It really is, because thankfully I've taught my children, and they'll do with the knowledge that I've given them what they'll do with them. But for the most part, it's almost feels like a lost cause, but I can't completely give up on it. I really can't. But it really is pretty surface level stuff. And I can understand that human nature, we are supposed to judge at least on initial reaction to the cover, but at least pay attention to the cover, look behind the, you know, at least read the cover on the inside, you know, get a gist of what's going on and think about it, not be like, "Oh, don't like this on the outside," or, "Oh, I love this," and then never go any deeper, because you might actually love something on the surface and then dig deeper and find out it is just pure rubbish, just complete crap.
That's kind of my principle when it comes to dating, is, you know, the principle of looks draw you to a person, but it's the character and personality that keeps you with them. And if they don't have the character or the personality, you just got a nice little vase that can easily get knocked off a shelf and shatter on the ground, and you just sweep it up and haul it away and not really care about it.
Right.
You know, but if it was filled with, you know, gold flowers or something, you might be a little more. That's probably a terrible analogy, but you get the idea.
Yeah, but it makes sense, because a lot of things are pretty hollow on the inside. A lot of women, especially.
You were mentioning how Obama had the school lunch program. Back when that was kicking off, my sister and my niece was living with me at the time. And I used to walk around the block to take my niece to school every day. I was really active in you know, helping out around the school as a volunteer, quote unquote, parent, even though, you know, I don't have any kids. But when they started doing the whole school lunch thing, my niece had commented about how horrible the food was. Now, before this really kicked into action, you know, the kids, they had sugar frosted flakes, Fruit Loops, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, milk, etc. They had a pick of like brand name little boxes of cereal for the breakfasts. When Michelle Obama's thing kicked in, it looked more like dog food in bar form. The kids would open them up, take a nibble, and then shoot 3-pointers into the trash can with it. So I would end up taking actual snacks to school, so my niece had something to get her through till lunch. Then she was on her own. And the school lunches were horrible too.
Yeah, they still pretty much are. It's a bunch of crap. And they're like, oh, you can't have this. You can't have obesity in our children, yada, yada. You know what? Feeding these kids this one half-assed starvation meal during the day, for one, it's affecting our test scores and how kids are studying, and their brains are starving, so they're not going to do well. And honestly, my kids, they ride the bus 2 hours a day, and like an hour in the morning, an hour at night. And for some reason, our tiny town decided that they go one direction going to school, and they come back the other direction coming home from school. So my kids are the first ones on and the last ones off. So, and unfortunately, the youngest one just started kindergarten, and this is the first time she's been anywhere for a full day. So she's gone like almost 9 hours a day. And so I have to like send snacks with her older sisters. Be like, all right, you guys can snack on this, but you can't eat it on the bus, because they're not allowed to eat on the bus because kids are messy and disgusting creatures. And the bus driver has to clean all that up at the end of each day. And if every kid were to do that, then it'd be pretty tragic. But so my kids get home at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I got to make sure I have like good, decent, like solid snacks for them. And even though they eat breakfast at school, I will still feed them something before they leave. I mean, because it's just pretty tragic. These are kids. They're supposed to be eating right. And I really want to know what Melania is going to do about the school lunches, since it was the other, first lady who did this to them.
Well, I could tell you exactly why they feed them the crap they were, trying to feed them. It's because they're getting these kids adjusted to the rations that they'll be on when they're picking away at Comrade Hillary's salt mines.
It's sad. See, I always go back to these types of things. So like, I don't want to think the worst. I try to stay positive. I do, but I was like, I'm pretty positive this shit's going to happen.
See, one thing I don't understand is how is it that like, the first lady is able to do any of this stuff in the first place? Because if you're just the family member of the president of the United States, you don't have any power. You weren't elected to hold any political power. You shouldn't be allowed to do anything politically that involves government decision making.
Oh, see, what I
you should
love
have no
is
part in policy making.
What I love is, I think what really happened was she really played on that power of, she's a woman and black first lady, and who's going to tell her no? Oh, what do you mean I can't do this? It's for the children. And the first lady was originally, her job was to entertain and make life easier. And then the first lady started doing actually like PR stuff, like going to orphanages and getting them funding, or going and reading to children, and basically just the PR person. She was basically the first lady of America. Everybody wanted to go to her home and have tea with her.
The front of the house, right?
Well, the way I see it, if you're the relative of a government official, that doesn't make you a government official.
Right.
The first lady isn't a government position. It's literally just being the wife of someone that is president.
Yeah.
Like, if you're the brother of a president, you don't have any power. Wife of a president, no power. Child, no power. The only person that has that power is the president.
The elected official.
I got like that one guy, Billy. What was his last name?
Billy Carter.
Yeah, he tried to play off of the whole, well, I'm the president's brother, and that didn't work out too well for him either. But I mean, honestly, the only place where you get religions where they or not religious, but governments where the family members have power is in dictatorships or in monarchies.
Monarchies, yeah.
And that's what the government's turning into, is a type of dictatorship. And here's the funny part. When they were trying to get Hillary in and other people, they were all for this people's state kind of thing, this dictator type stuff that's going on, that the president knows what's best for us. Well, here comes President Trump has his ideas about how to do things. They're like, oh, we can't give the president absolute power. Oh no, that would be a bad thing. Wait a minute. You guys liked it when it was your guy. What's going on? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, huh?
Indeed.
Well, look, all right, we're at the top of the hour, and I hate to do a hard cut on as soon as Red gets rolling because she is something else.
Sorry I'm so late today. I am so sorry. That's bad form.
No, it's not.
Bad form, especially after you came on my inaugural show last night, you and Sir. I mean, you guys, and Uzi too, you guys really helped out and were a serious presence last night. So
it was fun, you know. It was like but as a matter of fact, while we got a moment here, you want to tell everybody about what you do on Sundays and this new thing you just talked about?
Okay, well, thank you, Ari. So my husband, Mercolium, and I do a show on Sundays called The Devil's Advocates. And what we do is we have 4 to 6 guests on the show. And then we will spin a wheel for teams. And the first person that their name pops up on the wheel, they get to pick either pro or con. And then after the teams are decided, then you get to spin for topic. And it's a joking kind of like, let's, a bunch of satire about actual stuff that's going on, and just to get people talking and laughing. And well, then we realized that some people had some actual serious things they wanted to talk about with some of these topics. So I decided I'm going to do the midweek windup on Wednesdays or Thursdays. And last night was the first night we did this. And I found a bunch of different topics that were local or like, to our country. And we did the topics. We had serious discussion about them. And then from now on, what we talk about on the midweek windup, the joke form of those questions will be on Sundays. So we can get the people to have their serious input on the show on Wednesday, and then they can make light of it on Sunday.
Cool.
So.
All right. Well,
and Red throws a hell of an after party too, by the way.
Indeed. It sounds like it.
That's fun shit.
So, all right, everybody, why don't you tip your hats and say bye-bye to the crowd? And we'll start with Sir Adamantine.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
All righty. Silver.
Until next time, see you later. Twitch.
Red.
All right. Good night, folks. Have a good Friday. Friday the 13th is actually pretty damn lucky.
That's right.
14th now.
Ockham.
Not in my state.
Ockham.
Well, top of the morning to you, laddies.
Oh, jeez.
Jacksepticeye.
And our wonderful guest for this evening, Isaac. You are welcome here. You have eternal invitation. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you ever want to pop by, just shoot me a DM and I'll pop the link to you. Okay.
That sounds awesome.
Right.
Thanks for everybody who put up with my pretentious musings. It was
Good stuff, though, man.
rather polite of you.
An awesome fit for this deal, man. I thought it was excellent. So,
thank you.
Really appreciate that. But Cyberspace Cadets, that's another one we got in the history books, and we'll say Daterludes for now, and see you next week. All righty. And on that one, we'll say nighty night.